It was a foundational promise: water as a right. In the early years of the revolution, access to essential services, water among them, was enshrined as part of the social contract, a guarantee rooted in aspiration, that no Iranian would be denied the fundamentals of life. But now, almost half a century later, that guarantee is unraveling. Why? Because Iran is no longer just thirsty, it's drying up. For the past 5 to 6 years, the country has endured an unrelenting drought, the worst in a generation. Rainfall has plummeted. Climate change is turning what were once predictable seasons into erratic extremes. Rivers, lakes, wetlands, and aquifers are shrinking, weakened by a relentless combination of heat, evaporation, and record-low precipitation. That alone might be solvable, with good water management, conservation, investment. But in Iran, drought collided with decades of poor policy, overexploitation, and what critics see as deliberate mismanagement. Deep wells drilled beyond sustainable limits. Dams and reservoirs built, only to leak, silt up, or drain. Surface water diverted for farms, industrial uses, and political projects. The result? Water meant to serve the many ended up serving the few. Now the scorecard is cruel. Reservoirs once brimming, now nearly empty. Basins once abundant, now bone dry. A capital city built for water, now gasping for it. In the heart of Iran lies Tehran, a sprawling metropolis of nearly 10 million people in the city, even more across its greater metropolitan area. For decades, Tehran depended on a network of dams and reservoirs scattered around the capital's periphery to supply water for drinking, sanitation, industry, and irrigation. But now, those lifelines have almost vanished. By late 2025, reports showed the main dams supplying Tehran at their lowest levels in 60 years. Some, like the Latyan Dam, were reported to be at just about 9 to 10% of their capacity. In other areas, dams that once reliably served millions are down to merely 3% capacity or less, such as in the northeastern city of Mashhad. As water supply shrank, authorities were forced to take drastic measures, rationing water supply, reducing water pressure, and preparing for the worst. In a public announcement, President Masoud Pezeshkian warned that if rainfall did not arrive soon, rationing would begin. And if the drought persisted, evacuations might follow. Never in modern Iranian history had such a warning, or such a prospect, been taken seriously. Evacuating a capital city? A scenario unthinkable just months ago, but now it seems like an option being weighed. Behind the bureaucratic language and official statements lies a harsh reality. Millions of people waking up to empty taps, dried up wells, and a future without reliable water. Neighborhoods once lush with gardens are turning concrete brown and arid. In marginalized districts, where infrastructure was always weak, the crisis hits hardest. Water trucks circle the city. Families hoard jerry cans. Some families pay exorbitant rates for scarce drinking water. Others go without, especially old people, children, the poor. The drama unfolding in Tehran is only part of the story. Across Iran, from north to south, east to west, the same narrative plays out, only with different actors and stakes. In the provinces, entire farming communities find their livelihoods evaporating. For decades, agriculture, despite consuming more than 80 to 90% of the country's fresh water, was promoted as a pillar of national self-sufficiency. The aim was simple: feed Iran with Iranian produce. But the price was never calculated: water cost. Countless dams were built, fields irrigated, yet modern infrastructure and sustainable irrigation techniques were never rolled out at scale. The outcome now? Overuse, waste, depleted aquifers, and dying rivers. In some provinces, wells that once delivered clean, consistent water are now dry. In others, aquifers are collapsing, causing land to sink, houses to crack, and infrastructure to fail. Entire villages are being abandoned. Crop yields have collapsed. Farmers have had to leave land abandoned or switch to less water-intensive but lower-yielding crops, or simply give up farming altogether. In 2025 alone, waves of protests erupted across multiple provinces, from central regions to the south, under the banner of water and electricity scarcity. Farmers demanded what they called their basic water rights, haqqe ab, complaining of delayed payments, broken promises, and permanent shortages. Some demonstrations turned confrontational, with road blockades, sit-ins, and police intervention. Meanwhile, in the north, wetlands once full of water and life, lakes, marshes, rivers, are drying up, damaging ecosystems, destroying wildlife habitats, and increasing dust storms and air pollution. The human cost is mounting, the environmental cost is staggering, and the economic cost, especially for farming, small industries, and rural livelihoods, may take decades to reverse. There is no single cause for what is unfolding, but a cascade of overlapping failures. On one hand, climate plays a real role. Iran's rainfall patterns have shifted. Rain that once replenished rivers and aquifers arrives in shorter, more intense bursts, often causing floods rather than meaningful groundwater recharge. Summers are hotter, evaporation is higher, drought cycles longer and more frequent. Scientists say the drought of the early 2020s, now extended to 5 or 6 years, is the worst in 60 years. But climate alone doesn't explain why water levels are so catastrophically low across dams and aquifers simultaneously. Human decisions and structural failures are at the core, experts argue. Iran's water management system has long been flawed. Over-extraction, inefficient irrigation, widespread illegal wells, poor infrastructure maintenance, and lack of oversight. Add to that political and economic interests. Water resources often diverted to projects aligned with powerful actors rather than checked by transparent regulation. Some critics point fingers at the IRGC and politically connected entities, accusing them of leveraging water for profit and influence, often at the expense of ordinary citizens. Moreover, agricultural policy, especially the drive for domestic food self-sufficiency, promoted the cultivation of water-intensive crops, even in arid regions. The result? A massive drain on water resources for meager yield. In 2025 alone, agriculture reportedly consumed over 90% of Iran's fresh water, yet accounted for only about 12% of GDP and 14% of employment, a clear mismatch between water use and economic benefit. In urban areas, especially Tehran, rapid, largely unregulated urban expansion has exacerbated demand. Consumption per capita has soared. Water networks, pipelines, and pumps were never upgraded proportionally. Losses to leaks, theft, and inefficiency now account for a significant share of water before it even reaches households. In short, the crisis is not merely environmental. It is structural, systemic, political. Faced with mounting public distress and growing international scrutiny, the Iranian government has begun to respond. But the measures remain controversial, insufficient, and in some cases, deeply disruptive. At the highest level, President Masoud Pezeshkian has not shied from stark warnings. Water rationing, reduced pressure, emergency conservation campaigns, and, as a last resort, evacuation of parts of Tehran. He stated that Iran no longer has a choice, hinting at the need to relocate the capital if conditions worsen. Such a move would be unprecedented. Tehran has served as Iran's political, economic, and cultural heart for centuries. Yet the severity of the water crisis seems to push beyond what political resilience alone can handle. Analysts warn that relocation would be a years-long, massively costly process, if even feasible. Short of relocation, authorities have introduced rationing, encouraged austerity in water use, promised reforms, but experts remain skeptical. Many say that without structural overhaul of agricultural policies, water allocation priorities, infrastructure upgrades, and transparency, the measures will amount to little more than delaying the inevitable. At the same time, citizens' frustration is simmering. Protests continue. Disillusionment with the political class is spreading. After years of being told water is a basic right, many feel that right has been broken. Water is more than a resource. It is life. And when water vanishes, everything else, health, jobs, hope, follows. In urban neighborhoods, daily routines are upended. Families wake early to collect water. Middle-class households hoard water in jerry cans. Poorer families go without. Public fountains close, gardens die. Sanitation suffers. Hospitals struggle. Hygiene becomes a luxury. Especially alarming are the reports of informal settlements and low-income districts where supply is most erratic. In rural zones, entire livelihoods collapse. Farmers watch their wells dry, crops fail. Orchards that once bore fruit turn barren. Traditional farms are abandoned. Some farmers uproot their trees, sell their land, and migrate to cities seeking uncertain work, only to find water, power, jobs, and housing all under duress. Industries reliant on water, agriculture, food processing, even basic manufacturing, falter. Factories shut down as hydropower dwindles. Workers lose jobs. Inflation, already high, worsens. Food prices rise. Nutritional insecurity spreads. Meanwhile, the environment reels. Wetlands once teeming with birds, like migratory flocks over northern marshes, are drying up. Forests and farmland parch. Dust storms sweep across dried riverbeds and former wetlands, fouling air, spreading salt and pollutants, threatening health across large swaths of the country. Psychologically, too, the toll is heavy. Uncertainty, fear, anger. Questions many Iranians privately ask. Was the promise of free water ever real? Or was it always just rhetoric? And what happens now, when that promise becomes emptiness? So when the line echoes, Khomeini promised free water, it's not just a historical footnote. It is a haunting reminder of commitments unfulfilled. Because that promise, like many others, is being tested not by external forces alone, but by decades of neglect, mismanagement, and failed policies. If Iran is to survive this moment, if Tehran is to remain a viable capital, if farmers are to keep working the land, if ordinary men, women, and children are to drink clean water and lead dignified lives, the country needs more than warnings and rationing. It needs real reckoning, real reform, transparent water governance, sustainable agriculture, infrastructure overhaul, equitable resource allocation, accountability. The alternative? As some analysts now warn, water bankruptcy. A collapse that will not just shrink reservoirs, but livelihoods, cities, and trust itself. For the people of Iran, the promise may have begun with a slogan, but today it demands delivery or justice.